This is the lecture for Stream Discharge Laboratory, ENR4345, Methods in Aquatic Ecology course at The Ohio State University. In this lecture, you will learn the characteristics of a good sampling site. Next, we will review the protocol that we will be using in the next lab period. First, I will go over measuring velocity using the float method, followed by measuring velocity with a velocimeter and a top set weighting rod. First, I want to review the characteristics of a good sampling site. The photos below are depicting a sampling site near the fishing bridge in Yellowstone National Park. Often, a good sampling site will be near a bridge because constructing a bridge usually requires making changes to a stream that also make it an ideal sampling location. This site also has a NOAA stream gauge, which we learned about in the previous lecture, and could provide good long-term data on this sampling site. The first and most important characteristic is to choose a safe sampling site, and the second is that the site needs to be accessible. In the photo on the right, you can see that this river is not too deep or moving too swiftly, and that there is a clear access path making the river accessible. Secondly, when studying stream discharge, it is best if the flow is uniform across the channel and that there are no rocks or obstructions. Thirdly, the flow should be parallel to the stream banks with no pools or eddies in the sampling area. In the next lab period, we will use the float method for measuring velocity. First, we will measure a length of stream that is at least 20 meters across. This length should be measured in the same direction as the current. Next, we will use a timer to time 3 different objects, a tennis ball, ping pong ball, and an orange, as the current moves them down the measured length of the stream. These 3 floats were chosen because they have different buoyancies. They are ideal for this study because they don't float right on the surface of the water. You may want to record notes on any buoyancy differences you notice between the 3 float types. Make sure that you release the float upstream of the start point so that it can reach the speed of the river before you start recording time. The next technique that we will be using is a velocimeter, which is also sometimes called a current meter, and a top set weighting rod. These meters have a sensor that attaches to the weighting rod, a handset, and a neat satchel that holds the cable so we don't trip over it when we are using this piece of equipment. When this is used, you want the sensor to be facing upstream in an area where the current is not obstructed by rocks or other debris. Make sure that you stand downstream of the sensor so that your body is not obstructing it. Remember from the last lecture that the average velocity is measured at 60% of the stream depth. We will want to use the top set weighting rod to place the sensor at 60% depth, and then we will record the velocity of the stream in meters per second, which will be visible on the velocimeter handset. The top set weighting rod has measurement markings on its side that we can use to set the velocimeter at 60% depth. First, we will want to measure the total depth of the river at the sampling location. Each single line marker on the weighting rod is 2 centimeters apart. The double lines are 10 centimeters apart, and the triple line is 50 centimeters from the bottom of the weighting rod. Another way to think of this is that the triple line is 0.5 meters from the bottom of the top set weighting rod, the double lines are 0.1 meters apart, and that the single lines are 0.02 meters apart. Now that we measured the total depth of the river, we want to use the top set weighting rod to place the velocimeter at 60% depth. You'll notice these numbers on the top of the weighting rod. When you set these numbers to the total depth of the river, it automatically places the velocimeter at 60% of that depth. For example, if the total depth of the river is 50 centimeters, we would adjust the top set weighting rod so that the 5 is across from the 0, and it would raise the velocimeter to 60% of 50 centimeters or to 30 centimeters so that we can measure the average velocity. When we are using the velocimeter, we will want to take several measurements of both depth and velocity throughout the transect we are going to study. This diagram is showing the river cross-section. The scarlet and gray students are standing on either stream bank. This is the top of the water, and this is the bottom of the stream. We will want to measure the wetted width across the river perpendicular to the current and record this measurement in meters. Next, we will want to divide the stream into cells. You will get the most accurate measurement of area if you divide the stream into multiple cells and take several measurements along the measured wetted width. There are several different ways to divide up a stream. As an example, let's divide this stream into 4 cells. You'll want to use the top set weighting rod to measure the depth at the halfway point of each cell. That depth will be recorded, and then we will use the velocimeter to measure the average velocity at each of these points. For your data analysis assignment, you will be using the width and depth measurements to calculate the cross-sectional area, and you will multiply area by the velocity to calculate discharge of each cell. The total discharge will be the sum of the discharge of each cell.